Welcome back to Junction 119. This is Kellan.
This is Casen.
In Casen, I like the angle. You have a different camera angle than you usually do. I was
Yeah,
just
yeah. I just moved some stuff around and I'm trying something out.
I was gonna say it has nothing to do with the fact that you like literally just jumped on here.
Yeah,
Move things around, but we're here. We are here, and this is March, Casen.
this
Uh,
is March.
we are 7 days into. Is it funny that like the second the calendar flipped to March, like I swear I wake up with the CBS theme in my head. Are you like me? Just the dun dun dun
Yeah,
dun dun dun, and not to mention every single TikTok and post I saw on social media was just highlights from the past years, men's and women's tournaments. So
yeah.
Jason and I have a very loose, we have a very loose agenda today for the show. We're gonna kind of preview March Madness. We're gonna kind of go through each conference, I guess is the way to put it. We can also kind of preview essentially the women's tournament since I what was fun was I had some on today just because I was working remotely. Um, the women's tournaments, conference tournaments are going on right now. Most of them all happen over the course of this weekend, so all the major tournaments are going on, and then the men's tournaments all essentially get underway next week for the conferences. I was even looking up here because Casey, I don't know about you, but it seems like things are happening a little later in March this year.
Yeah, it must just be I don't know if it's the calendar. I'd have to go back and check to see if it's kind of normally this late, but it feels like it feels like it's a week behind than what
Yeah,
I would feel than what it feels like.
well, for me, and I'll just be transparent here. I mean, my birthday's on March 17th. I mean, that's not like a secret, just that's the case. And I always associate March and this time of year with that, yes. But also, usually my birthday is like the opening weekend of March Madness. I always kind of like it falls like St. Patrick's Day falls somewhere around there. And this year, Selection Sunday is my birthday, the March
Yeah.
17th, which just feels late to me. It feels really late, which means that the tournament won't start until really going into the weekend of the first full day, I guess will be like what, the 20th of March. It'll be like that Thursday because it goes the Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday for
Yeah,
the first two
yeah.
rounds. So yeah, I mean, I was just kind of it feels a bit later, but at the same time, we do have a leap. It is a leap year where we had the extra day, and so
So
yeah. Go ahead.
yeah, so Selection Sunday last year was the 12th.
There you go.
Um,
Yeah, and that feels more
and
on
so
schedule.
it's not like like weirdly like, and then the year before that it was the 13th. So yeah, it's just like 5 days later than what we probably associate it with, and so it just feels a little weird.
Yeah, but
Probably
I
just kind of with the way that the calendar fell, leap year, whatever.
but while we do this, I encourage the listeners as well, viewers, what have you. Like I said, we're going to do a preview of March Madness a little bit early. And then essentially we're going to bring you of the weeks to kind of close the show out, of which I have quite a few. So I think we'll have a lot of good things to talk about. But I don't know about you, Kason, but I have Joe Lenardi bracketology just like pulled up, as I always do. You're familiar with it, right? Where he
Yeah,
just
yep.
in real time has the tournament up. And then I figured we could kind of go, I don't know, loosely talk about each conference. We could just go conference by conference for the men, and then we can kind of do a loose preview for the women as well. I have an idea of who I think will really make a run at it this year, and no, it's not the story of the women's game this year, Caitlin Clark, as it should be. But so I don't know. How do you want to start this?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we can just go ahead and take a look at one of the most recent Lunardi brackets
Mhm.
from.
His most recent one right now, at least the day we're recording this is a Thursday,
Yeah.
is from 2 days ago. It's from March 5th. His first, he's got the three teams at the
Uh,
top. His number one overall seed really hasn't changed all year. Remains Purdue.
okay.
And his first team out right now is St. John's, and his last team in right now is Wake Forest. Now, I looked at it a week ago, and Wake Forest was the first team out. So that has changed.
Yeah, okay. So I think he did have one today. Um,
Let me
let
hit
me
the good old
see.
refresh because I figured now the one I have on bracketology is still from the 5th.
Okay. Yeah, he must not post it there, but he I think he puts one out on Twitter every single day.
Okay. Well, it just must
Um,
be they must just not update it yet.
yeah, but it usually is the same. A few things change, but yeah, I think the recurring theme, which we can mostly talk about, we can just start with the number one seeds. Purdue as the number one overall seed, probably the most common number one overall throughout the season. They've gone up and down with UConn and Houston and some other teams back and forth throughout the beginning of the season, but Purdue has consistently been probably the most dominant team throughout the regular season.
Yes, and it comes to it comes to my theory that I have going into March Madness that Purdue's gonna. I'm not saying they're gonna win it, but I think they're gonna be a really tough out this year, primarily because they are on the same warpath that Virginia was on the year after they lost to UMBC in the 16 seed. You got Fairleigh Dickinson last year,
Mm-hmm.
knocked them out as a 16 seed. I have this, Edie comes back. My thoughts are Purdue is on a warpath. They want to make everybody forget about that loss. But that being said, I look at these four number one seeds that he has projected right now. Purdue's is number one overall, as you just said. UConn, there's other number one seed in the East right now. His West is Arizona, and his South bracket is Dallas, or excuse me, is in Dallas is Houston. And obviously this is all projection right now, but if that shakes out like that with those one seeds, part of me like thinks there's real discrepancy between like two of those one seeds seem way higher than the other two, just based on the seed. Like I think Purdue and
Yeah.
UConn are like far and away like way better than like say Arizona or Houston. But
Yeah, I mean,
go
I
ahead.
think
Yeah.
that the Houston's been good for the last several years. They've had a really dominant program in the American, and then this year,
Yeah.
as them moving to the Big 12, that they kept that rolling, and they were able to consistently dominate in the Big 12,
Mm-hmm.
and they're on their way to winning that conference as well, and so clearly they're a very good program. Uh, and yeah, UConn basically reloaded.
Yeah.
They lost some key pieces from last year's championship team, but they basically were able to replace what they lost, and looked really good. And I mean, that they were number one at one point in time, and then so they've looked very good heading into the tournament.
They do. Any thoughts on these two seeds? Because I at least did want to like in the latest bracketology, you can take a look. In the Purdue section of the bracket, he's got Marquette as a 2. He's got North Carolina as a 2. He's got Iowa State as a 2, who I'll admit I have not seen play at all this year. And he's got Tennessee as the 2. I have seen the Volunteers play, and I've seen a little bit of Marquette as well. The real reason I wanted to bring this up was Marquette, because they were a team under Shaka there that absolutely went further, I think, than a lot of folks had them go last year. But they're a year better. They got a year of experience in that tournament. Like I could see them. Like I think in mine, I'll definitely have Marquette going far this year.
Yeah. I mean, I think Marquette's been a very uh difficult out for any opponent that's played them. Um,
Cohesive.
sorry, I'm trying to find the one because the one I was looking at was not the same one you had.
Just look up.
Um,
Just literally just look
okay.
up bracketology on ESPN. It'll be pop right
Okay.
up.
The format was just not
I
okay.
got
So I
you.
think it's the one from the fifth. Um, so the what you were looking at Marquette, Iowa State.
You could
Uh,
also throw out one from more recent. I mean, these are all
okay.
just projections. So
Yeah, I they it's weird that he changes them so often. Um,
hey, he's doing it by the second, man.
yeah,
Stuff
pretty
changes.
much.
Stuff
Uh,
changes every day that can affect the bracket.
yeah, I mean, I think that Marquette is a really interesting team because Marquette is in the Big East with UConn,
Yes.
and I know they've had some pretty good games this year.
I want to
And
I want to go over here because in a weird way the Big East is I don't want to say like the traditional Big East is not back, but the Big East as a basketball only conference, the new Big East, I mean, they are a loaded conference. I mean, at the top they got UConn,
yeah,
Creighton, and Marquette. And then like not ranked, but Seton Hall sitting there at the fourth spot at 12-7. So,
Mhm.
and yet I say that to you because, and this is kind of how I want to do this. I wasn't going to talk about every single conference, honestly, but we can I can talk about some of these bigger ones. Like that is 100% a conference where I could see like someone random like Villanova or Providence just go on a run and win the tournament, and suddenly they're in there.
Yeah, yeah. And so as far as that goes,
Probably not with the
the
big
Big East,
dogs
well,
in
the
there,
Big
but
East
still.
tournament, the Big East tournament at Madison Square Garden always has serious tournament implications as far as, I remember there was the one year I think Nova got upset, and so they all like always have some pretty big implications where somebody on the bubble can go on a run and win the tournament and get their way into the dance, and then you have somebody like a Marquette who was a top seed and um not quite make it. I mean, if you remember, Marquette had a bit of a Cinderella run last year,
Yeah.
a little bit because they got hot in New York, and then they were able to build off of that, and here they are,
Again,
one of the
Shaka
top
Smart,
16
man.
seed. Yeah,
Uh,
and so it works out, and clearly, I mean, like people seem to forget that he's there.
well, what's interesting is that I actually got a chance to go to VCU this year to that incredible arena they have there in Richmond,
Hmm.
Virginia, and they actually the fans actually do refer to that regional 2000 and 2011 banner. They do call it the Shaka banner, which is pretty great. It's awesome. But I wanted to point out something else on that same thing. Oh, fun fact. I don't know if you knew this. Marquette, biggest men's basketball budget in the United States. A lot of people don't know that. Uh,
I that just seems outrageous.
that seems
Like
wild, doesn't it? But they're a school. They're one of those schools. They don't have football. You know, I mean, typically, if a school does play men's basketball but not football, the biggest budget is for the men's basketball team. However, like at least going into this past year, they had the biggest budget. Now it might be changed with nickel and dimes, but like by like I guess endowment and the amount of money that they allot for like the department, Marquette ends up having the most money, which is kind of amazing when you figure
that
out the
is
other big schools.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, they're making good use of it. Was what I'm saying there. You know.
Wow.
I wanted to roll down here because I wanted to point something out that had we talked more college basketball during the year, Casen, I would have pointed this out. Yes, they have Purdue, and yes, they have Illinois sitting there at number 3 right now in the country, number 12. Obviously, the fluctuation with the ranks goes that way. The Big Ten, pretty down year. Thoughts? I mean, you're rocking the Ohio State shirt today, which is
Yeah.
a pretty cool shirt, by
Yeah.
the way.
Um.
Down year for the Big Ten in men's basketball. I thought that from the
Yeah.
very beginning of the
Yeah.
year. I mean, not saying one of these teams couldn't get into the tournament, make a run, but I mean, it just seemed like just looking at the standings here prior to their tournament. I mean, the league outside of Purdue and Illinois kind of just cannibalized itself from the look of things.
Pretty much. Yeah. That's
I mean, Nebraska, Northwestern, and Wisconsin are your 3 outside of like are your top 3 in the league outside of Purdue and Illinois. Like what? So we were talking about the Big Ten up and down and how
Mhm.
like it just was a down year for the conference in general, at least with men's basketball. And there were some notable absences, and one I was going to point out to you was Michigan State, middle of the pack, 10 and
Yeah,
9. Now,
yeah.
those
Michigan State.
squads always a problem when it comes to the tournament,
I
but
I
down
think they
here,
were I think they were maybe ranked at the very beginning of the year because I remember there was that huge game when James Madison beat them.
yeah,
And so I think they were expected to be good. I know there were high hopes as always for Wisconsin. And they're kind of just average. They were like around 500 in conference play. And yeah, the Big Ten has sort of been relatively down in basketball for a couple years. I mean, the most notable conversation as far as the I guess you could say the state of the Big Ten basketball would revolve around Michigan being absolutely atrocious, along with
yeah,
Ohio State severely just underperforming. I mean, we talked about it would
8
have
and
happened,
22 Wolverines,
but
man.
yeah, but
Jeez.
Ohio State fired Chris Holtman, and
Yep.
they've ended up winning a handful of games with interim coach Jake Diebler, and um they have talent on the roster, and they just completely underperformed the last couple of years.
Well,
And
in
so
the meat of the Big Ten is solid because I mean there's only 4 teams in the Big Ten with a losing record. That being said, the middle of the
yeah,
pack is like all 18 wins, 17
yeah,
wins, 18
and so
wins.
there was a conversation about Ohio State being in the conversation of being on the bubble, of if they can rattle off some more wins and go on a run in the Big Ten tournament, that they could somehow play their way into sneaking into the tournament, which is insane considering where they were in January.
Very, very
And
true.
so if that's possible,
Well, hey man,
fun.
this is the beauty of This Is March, is that
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
have just one really hot week and somehow make it to the tournament. I wanted to talk about this. You and I, when we were first talking about a lot like realignment back, before really football season started, we were talking. I remember making a mention to you that the new Big 12 that's going to happen this next year is a stacked basketball conference. Well, from top to bottom, it's the best conference this year, probably followed by the SEC in terms of teams at the top. But let me just count this up real quick. Real
They're
quick.
Big
One,
Ten
two, Big 12. Big
or
12.
they're Big 12.
No, like the Big 12 is probably your best conference from top to bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 20 plus win teams in that league with 5 ranked teams at the time. Obviously Houston we talked about. Iowa State though, like I said, I had not seen them play, but Iowa State,
Okay, because you're including the additions of Arizona
no, like the Big 12,
and
no, like the Big 12 as it is right now, even
oh
before they bring those new teams in, is already incredible when it comes to men's basketball
yeah,
because you got the
yeah.
top Houston, Iowa State, Baylor, and then of course Kansas and Texas Tech have an incredible season as well. Look for like I don't know 9 teams potentially to get in from that league from the tournament. If you go look at I'm looking at the conference standings right now.
Yeah, if I look at let me see.
Shout out to Mercer, by the way, in the background.
Yeah.
That's the best thing about
Yeah.
this angle.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. So if I look at Lunardi's bracket from yesterday,
yes,
he shows the Big 12 with 9,
9 in
and then
there.
the SEC with 7. He
Interesting.
at least the one yesterday from Wednesday the 6th showed the Big 10 with 6. Um and the Mountain West and Big East with 6 as well. So yeah, so he did show um from what was it the
And for reference, the SEC has 6 teams with 20 plus wins in the conference this year.
let me see here.
You looking for the
Yeah.
okay.
Okay. Yep. So yeah, so it seems to be heavily favored towards the Big 12 and SEC, at least as far as the depth of the conferences. I don't really know how he's getting 6 teams from the Big 10, but he has them, which I would imagine would be Purdue, Illinois, Nebraska, Northwestern.
Probably some random team too, like in the middle
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
I do also want to pull up just some of these. I love looking through all of the conferences, like the because you got the West Coast Conference, of course, that's the one with St. Mary's and Gonzaga in it. But
Hmm.
I personally also love the Big West. Let me see if I can go get it here. If I'm pretty sure, let me to it here. Big Ten, Big South, Big Sky, Big East. Oh, where's the Big West? Yes, the Big West Conference. As I jokingly like to refer to it as the UC conference, because like all the UCs are in there. It's like UC Irvine, UC San Diego, UC Davis, Long Beach State, Hawaii,
Yeah.
Cal State, UC Riverside, UC Santa Barbara, like all of those, they're all in there. And shout out to one of the best mascots that I hear every year. The UC Irvine Anteaters are 22-8 and at the top of that league. So that's incredible. I love want to
Yeah.
point that out.
So speaking of
Mhm.
currently sitting at 0-18 in the Big West is Cal Poly.
Mm,
They are
I see
4 and
that.
26 on the year, and
The Cal Poly Mustangs.
they are on an 18 game losing streak.
Brutal.
So that is tough. That is tough.
That is tough out there, man. I did also want to pull up I was going somewhere with a thought. Oh, I did want to give a shout out to a team that I saw play with my own eyes this year. Two teams from this conference that I think are poised to make a run, although I don't think. Let me just go to Lenardi real quick. I was going to pull up the Sun Belt because I wanted to. Oh, okay. It's just pulling back the conferences. I think the Sun Belt might get 1 to 2 teams in. The top of the Sun Belt, though, is a team that I saw play, and this team was unbelievable when I saw them play. And they just wrapped up a season in which they went completely undefeated at home with a 26-5 record, and that's the App State Mountaineers. I think I may have mentioned to you before, Casen, like
Mm-hmm.
I literally watched that team come out and hit 10 threes to start a half and just absolutely blow the doors off teams this year. There's some buzz there, and the reason there's some buzz, obviously, in my neck of the woods, is that like this is potentially the best App State basketball team they've ever had, and I think they're they're a slam dunk March team, tournament team, but like if they get in there, I really think they're a team that could make a run. They could be sneaky out, and
Yeah.
that's on top of us. They actually have a like percentage wise a slightly better record than James Madison, who's right there at 28-3. Again, that
Yeah.
athletic department just continues to cook.
That's one of those things where it's going to be very interesting to see how that goes, because App State and James Madison are going to be fighting for their tournament seed, or for their tournament win and an automatic bid to the
And
tournament.
the loser, no guarantee you're making
And
in
the
there.
loser, yeah. And so it would be very sad to see one of these two not in,
It would be a
because
travesty.
they both have the resume for it.
They
I
do.
mean, James Madison was ranked at one point. They're receiving votes. Um, they have some really good wins. I mean, they both. I mean, James Madison could get to 30 wins here in a couple days, in a week, and
Absolutely.
so either one not getting in, I think would be wrong.
Yes, I agree. There, I guess we got to talk about him. Bowling Green it sits towards the top ish of the MAC. First year under coach Todd Simons there.
Mm-hmm.
Bowling Green's had a good season. They're 18-12, but honestly, from top to bottom, solid year for the MAC. Akron, obviously, your 21-9 team there at the top. But you got Toledo, Ohio, Central Michigan, all above Bowling Green. So they'll enter the MAC tournament with just being a middle of the road squad, pretty much.
Well, yeah. I mean, as is kind of actually not really the norm. I mean, for a long time, we've had at least one team that's just incredibly dominant, but it's been a relatively, a relatively, I guess, what you could say, even year. I mean, because there's a ton of teams
I'd say it's been an up year
within.
for the Mid American.
Um,
With as
yeah,
atrocious as
I
we've
guess
seen it.
we're all sort of within striking distance of each other. Like half of the conferences within 4 games of each other.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the we beat Toledo at home,
Yep.
and yeah, I think as far as Bowling Green goes, we have a chance to win a couple games in the tournament, or in the MAC tournament, and um we're trending in the right direction after moving on
Some
from our
stagnant
previous
years.
coach. Yeah, we
It,
actually have some silver linings to look forward to in the future.
absolutely. I see. And also just I didn't realize Buffalo was 4-26. Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So
Far from the Nate Oates
when
days.
we were in town, we were so used to Buffalo being a monster, but Nate Oates took the job at Alabama and has Alabama rolling, and
Yeah.
they have not gotten back to where they used to be
No.
at all.
I'll give a shout out, obviously, in my neck of the woods. The Big South tournament's going on right now. Won't say any more than that, but I do have a dog in that. I have a dog in that, in the fight in that one, quote unquote, so to speak, pun intended. But that's been a lot of fun as well. I bring it up just because there's a lot of fun to be had in mid. I really love college basketball just as much for the mid majors. I
Hmm.
mean, the mid major stuff. I mean, this is. I don't want to go on a tangent too much here, but I love this time of year because it's just awesome to see young people making a tournament and like, the potentially no name players, no name schools become like household names for like a week and change, or even like a day. Like have your day. You know what I mean? And every single year we get that, and it's always from these conferences, which is let's face it, the majority of college basketball is mid
Yeah.
majors or guys playing at this, at the SoCon or the Sunland Conference or the Western Conference, like we were talking about earlier, the Big West or the Summit League or Ivy League. I mean, um, so yeah, it's part of the real fun of this time of year. I want to come back to the West Coast Conference though again and talk about this. If you're a fan of San Francisco, Santa Clara, San Diego, Loyola Molly, if you're at Pepperdine, Portland, like you've got to hate St. Mary's and Gonzaga at the top every year. It's like,
Yeah.
can we, can
You've
like,
got no hope of winning
I,
anything ever.
yeah, I mean, it was for the longest time always Gonzaga who always, chokes in the postseason, but now it's St. Mary's too. It's like, come on, like,
Yeah.
like that's just brutal. Every year I see that conference, I'm like, wow, that's got to be tough out there.
Yeah. It's tough. I mean, I don't know I don't know how you recruit any of those schools. Like, come here and we can be third in the West Coast
Yes,
Conference.
it's a battle for third, and it's going to be a distant third. That's our new first place. And
Yeah,
um,
a distant third is correct. Yeah.
I guess I'll ask here. You have Lenardi in front of you, right? I think I know a good way we can kind of wrap this
Yeah.
up. Any of these teams on the bubble you find interesting because he's always got the 16 sitting here, and I don't know which 16 you see, but I'm still looking at the one from the fifth.
Yeah. So I guess if I'm going from the one or the one from today,
Sure, you go for you talk about
um
that one. Yes.
the the last four in he has as Villanova,
Mm.
New Mexico, St. John's, and Virginia.
Oh, okay. So they're all here. They're just in slightly different Vermont.
And
Okay.
then the first four out are Providence, Utah, Colorado, Iowa, and then the next four out are Memphis, Pittsburgh, Wake Forest, and Drake.
Gotcha. So a little different, but about the
So
same.
yeah, I gotta say I love the idea of St. John's being in the tournament. Um, I love we got to get some Patino here in
Patino.
the tournament. Um,
Just
it yeah,
Rick
it's
Pitino,
got to happen.
Rick Pitino, just give me a basketball program and I will make it to March. just
I
just
mean,
let me
if he can walk into St. John's and get them back into the tournament,
in like a year.
in a year, yeah, I mean they would have it would have worked out for for what they ended up, you know,
He's like Napoleon, man. You can't get rid of him.
yeah.
Anyway, that's funny. But anyway, last four buys I see there is Villanova. I mean, I there's been a lot of talk in my neck of the woods about Wake Forest. Obviously, they're having a great season, and they haven't really been massively relevant since Tim Duncan played there. Let's just be real. So, um, yeah. Wait,
Chris Paul.
no, hang on. Or did I screw that up? Did he go to Vanderbilt? I get them screwed up.
I think he went there.
I'm looking it up, so I don't. Yeah, it was Wake Forest. Yep, 90s.
Yeah, yeah, but Chris Paul was after that.
Yeah, he was.
I'm
But
trying to think. Yeah,
what? Yeah, yeah. So,
but yeah,
anyways,
yeah, because they had
so
Tim
really,
Duncan,
since
and then they
Chris
had Chris
Paul,
Paul, but that they were like kind of within a relative amount of time from each other. And so, and then just after that, they fell off the face of the planet.
They did, but
Um,
they're one of the tobacco road schools down here, and so they're never not the conversation around them is never not relevant. So, yep, you're right. Yeah, they were about 10 years apart from each other, by the way, because Duncan was there in the '90s and CP3 was about 10 years later.
yeah,
So
yeah. And so I'm trying to
that's
remember.
still almost like a 20-year difference, though, before there's been this much hype. So
Yeah,
it would
so
be nice to see them make it in, is all.
there's a connection there with there's they had a former coach named Skip Prosser, who was the head coach at Xavier for a while, and then
Mm-hmm.
he left Xavier to go there, and so they've always had a thing with Xavier because they kind of stole Skip Prosser from them,
Yeah.
and so that was a big thing, but
Nice. So anyway, conference tournaments really start next week. Let us know your thoughts out there, listeners, viewers. What tournament are you looking forward to the most? Are you just looking forward to the start of March Madness in general? I mean, personally, you're probably like me, Casen. I start to get excited right around conference tournament time. I mean, even,
mhm.
like I said, the women start playing today. So speaking of that, did want to go over here. Obviously, Caitlin Clark has been the story of the women's game all year long, right? But you have your top teams there. You still got your usual suspects. UConn's still good. Texas having a great year. This is the women again. But South Carolina's right now still your number one, and
Yeah.
Stanford is quietly doing incredible out there with players like Cameron Brink. And I'm just saying, I don't for as much as there's the hype with Iowa, and I definitely think they'll be there at the end. I could definitely see a situation here where Iowa gets bounced again. Thoughts? I mean, I
Um,
think it would be best if Caitlin Clark goes all the way to the championship like she did last year in terms of the hype surrounding and the storylines. But I just think that there's going to be a more cohesive teams that knock Iowa out again potentially. Thoughts?
yeah, I mean we've seen I mean obviously they've only lost 4 games, but
Ohio
we've
State's having a
seen
great year. They're one of those teams.
yeah. I mean they if I go just a quick look at their losses, they Iowa just lost to Indiana
Mm-hmm.
a couple weeks ago, and then Nebraska and Ohio State. Yeah, and they lost to Ohio State.
Yep.
And so they've lost them, and they're all really good teams. I guess outside of Nebraska, but um, they they do occasionally have some flawed games, and um, I think sometimes Iowa can run the entire game through Caitlin Clark, and then if that just doesn't go well, then maybe they can't really do anything. So but it's just going to depend. I think that they're probably definitely going to make at least the Elite Eight or maybe the Final Four again. But when it comes down to getting to the championship game and winning it, I don't. Yeah, I also don't know if they have the complete team necessary to win that like a Stanford or a South Carolina. But
We'll see. It was
yeah,
it.
I mean, I gone are the days of the UConn women dominating the sport of basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I think that something needs to be done. I think maybe a coaching change needs to be made. I think I think it's time to move on from Gino Auriemma.
No, he's got a pretty sure like a life contract or something there.
If you
That's
are not winning titles, you need to be
that's
fired.
quite a take. Yeah, if you've won like 10 of them or whatever it is. But
No,
I
I will say my statement about UConn women's basketball just goes as far as I feel really bad about or I feel really bad for Paige Beckers because she has just had I think the career that nobody thought that she would because she stormed onto the scene her freshman year at UConn,
she did.
lighting it up, and everybody thought she was going to be Caitlin Clark,
Yeah,
and then she got injured, and UConn and then
UConn just
UConn
UConn just
never
hasn't been
got
as
back to
good.
where they were.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
just haven't been as good as what they are.
and
But
then she got
also
injured again,
the
and
competition's also never been better. I mean, I think one of the things
yeah,
that's been the spectacle. I mean, I would go as far as to say, and it's not even close, Caitlin Clark is the story in college basketball this year. I don't think it's even close. Like, I mean, men or women, I think she's the biggest story. I mean, she literally just became the all-time scorer,
yeah.
passing up P. Maravich. And to be completely honest with you, I don't know if anyone's ever going to top her in the men or women's game, because if someone does come along that tops that record, it's going to be in the women's game, because you have to stay more than one. You have to stay like 4 years to do it.
I will say,
Mm.
however, and this is not a slight to her.
No, I
I
don't
mean,
think. Yeah, sure.
I said the same thing about Antoine Davis. Like
Mm-hmm.
it, she did not beat Pistol Pete's record. Like Pete Maravich set that record in 3 years before the 3-point shot.
Well, right.
So
It's one of the
he
no,
was
I get
averaging
you.
45 points a game
And people
for
were
3 years.
making that point. I mean, if they're in a world with no three
Yeah.
pointers, it's like
Like Pete Maravich was the Wilt Chamberlain of
right,
college basketball. Like,
right, exactly. Right, exactly. And so that is a good point to make it. And no, it's not a slight, but it's still an incredible achievement. And going forward
but
with
yeah.
today's
I mean,
rules, I
she's the
mean,
highest scoring player in modern basketball.
but my
Yeah,
point is, though, that it's been incredible to see the growth of the women's game through just figures like her. And really, the hype surrounding last year's March Madness for the women was incredible, with just LSU and Iowa, just that
yeah,
collision course. I mean, I also want to shout out the Syracuse Orange women, who have had a 23-6 season, incredible season, being one of the absolute dogs at the top of the ACC, because the ACC has 6 20-win teams in it. Syracuse is just one of them. And right now, sitting, with the ACC tournament starting like today / yesterday, I think today, um, Virginia Tech, NC State, Syracuse, Notre Dame, Louisville, all ranked at the top of the ACC in women's. And that's even before you hit 21 still, but not ranked, but 21 win Florida State is there at the middle. So I knew the ACC was good in women's basketball this year. I just didn't realize, oh, it's like the deepest conference there is here. So
yeah,
look
yeah.
for the ACC to potentially put the most teams, one of them and the SEC, of course, will put the most teams in the women's bracket here.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that going just going off your point of
Yes.
uh I think the UConn women, you know, basically winning every game for I think what was it, like 100 games in a
It
row
was,
or something.
yeah,
It was
that the
they
streak that was
won like
going on.
3 or 4 straight titles. I think the UConn fatigue definitely probably created the position we're in right now,
Mm.
which is everybody wanted to beat the Death Star. Like,
Yeah.
is that? I mean, as cool of the stories were of Breanna Stewart and um some of the other tremendous players to go to UConn
Oh, yeah.
during that time period. I think, and everybody wants to see the empire fall,
Everybody wants to
and
see
so
Dynasty's end. Yeah.
they build you up so they can tear you down. And UConn, if I would have to attribute UConn to like a men's program, they're the Duke of women's basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it,
Similar time frame as well.
I mean,
You know,
they're always relevant, and
but didn't really come on until that one coach, really
yeah,
kind of took them, because Duke wasn't Duke till Coach K was there. You know what I
right,
mean?
exactly.
So I've also always said, and I think I said this to you before, to me, when it comes to, well, the blue blood, I mean, UConn's obviously a blue blood in both men's and women's basketball. But I've always said, in terms of men's basketball, there's only 4 true blue bloods, with a fifth one that's like pseudo, and UConn's actually the fifth one. Can you name all 4 of them? I told you before, I think.
Yeah, it
And
will
they all
be
have blue in their color
it
scheme.
would be Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, and Kentucky.
Exactly.
Yeah,
With UConn is like your fifth. Like
yeah.
it fits. Um, your blue bloods in women's traditionally were UConn and Tennessee, in the Pat
Mhm.
Summit years. And there's some others kind of emerging out of these past few years. I mean, really nowhere Mulkey's been, I'd say, but she's just had success as she's gone stationary. But I don't know. You might see an error coming down the stretch here with women's basketball, where we're seeing some new blue bloods emerge.
Yeah, I mean,
It's really cool.
I'd say South Carolina,
South
is
Carolina in recent
definitely
years, yeah.
one of the bigger ones. But
Notre Dame
I
was really good when Muffet McGraw was there. You know,
yeah, yeah.
not quite blue blood status, but relevant for a long time. So
Stanford, they've been good
Stanford,
for a while.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, they're there. So hey, I'm looking forward to both tournaments, and like I said, I like daytime basketball starting up like today was. I was like, this is awesome, men's, women's. Let's see it. But I will be fascinated to see if Caitlin Clark can make it back and win the national championship this year with Iowa, because it was one
Yeah,
thing she didn't do last year.
that would be very um
I mean, that would be the crystal capping off, and then like
yeah.
what's it like the Indiana Fever like tickets prices have gone up. It's
Yeah.
like, yep. It's like, yes, they have.
Look, I mean, I know she's from, Iowa, but like spending her career in Indiana. Yeah.
It could
I
be
mean,
just
it's
amazing. Like go to
I
basketball
mean,
craze state.
like being at Iowa and then, going and getting drafted to Indiana, like she could have gone to New York. Like, come on.
Well,
That's gotta be
they already got
that,
Sabrina.
that that's gotta be the league's worst nightmare. And that the number one most marketable player they've ever had, and she's stuck in Indianapolis.
Well, that's the thing though. Indiana's a basketball craze state. You'll have her out there. You'll have Sabrina in New York. They
I guess
already have
that's
like,
true. I guess
yeah,
that's true of
it's
like
actually great for the
of like
WNBA.
her being in Indiana as far as the Hoosiers go, is kind of a big deal.
Yeah, I
Sure.
literally was just looking this up. Yeah, she literally is from Des Moines, Iowa. Like she's as stationary an Iowa kid gets, who can shoot the lights out of the ball.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I don't know how she comes. I don't know where you find her in Des Moines, Iowa, but
hey,
yeah.
she hey, homegrown. Anyway, that's all I had as far as like our preview goes. I'm looking forward to watching it with you, and we'll talk about it as we can in the coming weeks. Is it time for of the weeks? Because there's a
Yeah.
bunch.
Let's get into it.
Okay. So I got some sports ones and some not sports ones. Do you have one to start? Because I have a button topic we need to talk about to open it up.
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and get started and say uh I will go ahead and say stray of the week. So I don't know if you know when somebody's talking about something and then as they're talking they insult something that's completely irrelevant to what they're talking about,
Yes,
and so
like
it's like
and
catching
they like
strays.
they make a
Yeah,
situation worse. Like
yeah. So catching stray of the week. I don't know if you saw, but Sydney Sweeney hosted SNL.
yes.
And
Yep.
during her monologue, she made the comment, some of you may have seen me in Anything or Anyone But You and Euphoria. You certainly did not see me in Madam Web.
Yeah, that was
so
good.
so like the movie was out for a month and she's already making fun of her
Oh,
own
they all
movie.
are.
So
They're all like,
yeah,
okay, the press
yeah,
runs over. Let's just distance ourselves from
yeah.
this from this
So
garbage.
which yeah, and so this goes back to the conversation that we had about it, which was like this does no one any benefits. Like Sony is making these movies because they're legally required to hold the copyrights to these characters, and
Well,
no one likes them. The
like I
people that are
said a
in
week
them don't
ago,
like them.
like Sydney Sweeney and Dakota Johnson, and really a lot of that cast are all potential actors I would love to see in the actual MCU in some form, especially considering we
Yeah.
have the X-Men coming up and stuff like that. And it's like, I hope that if given us another shot outside of us, I mean, what are you saying?
Well, I could live without Dakota Johnson in the MCU, but it's
Well,
just
okay, I understand, but Sydney Sweeney, I think she could be a character somewhat. I don't know.
yeah.
I would like to see that talent in some other form, but I get what you mean. Um, but yes, solid there with SNL. I wanted to pull this up. I have a bad look of the week goes to, hate to say it, Arch Manning. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and if you're not familiar with this story, it goes back to our ongoing conversations about EA Sports College Football 25, the upcoming video game, which the whole world is going to buy. Arch Manning, obviously, grandson of Archie Manning, and uncles are Peyton and Eli, and dad's Cooper Manning. He's the backup quarterback at Texas now. He's opted out of the game, citing opting out, which means he really just He won't be in the game. He won't get the $600, and he won't get the copy of the game. He won't be playable in the game. Doesn't mean he wouldn't be creative player. But anyway, but the thing that he made it a storyline. He made it nothing out of something, or made something out of nothing, because he said, "I'm focused on playing football on the field," which is just a really weird thing to say. As to that's the reason you don't want to be in a game. And what's funny, Casen, is we sat here a week ago saying all the guys who do that are going to have to answer that over and over again in their personal lives of why didn't you want to be in the game? It's just like a weird decision. Why didn't you want $600, be in a video game,
Well,
and the copy of the game?
I think
and
if there's
Arch Manning
anybody
immediately makes it a storyline.
Here's the thing though. It is a bad look, but I think if there's anybody in which you can understand, it would be him, because this is definitely a decision that was made either because of his grandfather or influenced by, or just because he's part of that
Family name, yeah.
But it's because Arch Manning did not want to be the 62 overall backup quarterback at Texas.
Right.
Like, that is, I don't care what he says. That is 1,000% the reason.
I didn't even think about that. Hurts his marketability if he's not very good in the game.
He didn't want to be the mediocre backup quarterback that isn't, starting. Like,
that's a really good point, Case. I really didn't think about
because
that.
because he went out there and was like, "I'm focused on playing football." No, because you're not.
You're
focused on bench riding behind Quinn Ewers.
Well, maybe that's like his point. Like, he's like, I want to make it so that I'm, by the time, like, he wants it so that in 26 when it comes out, he's actually the starter for Texas.
Yes,
and it's like,
I can promise you, he will opt in next year if he's the starter, and they promise him he'll be like a 90 overall or something.
Right. If he's at Texas, just throwing it out there. If he's there still.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know why he'd transfer, because he'd start next year anyway. So
right, exactly.
Like, I don't know.
I'm just saying, just because it's a possibility. It's a popular thing to do these days.
It could be, yeah.
But anyway, that was my first of the week. This one's gonna be fun. We'll stay in football. My fire sale of the week goes to the Buffalo Bills, who are releasing everyone under the sun, because that Josh Allen money is kicking in. As my friend Casen said, here's what it looks like.
and so they released Jordan Poyer, they released Tre'Davious White, and it's also a recurring theme. Like, there are a handful of other safeties that have gotten released. And it's definitely taking effect, which I don't know for sure if we talked about it, but the salary cap in the NFL skyrocketed higher than anybody thought it would.
Yeah, it did.
And even then, there are teams who still have salary cap issues, because of their massive quarterback deals. So it definitely helped teams out. I mean, like the Browns definitely got a big relief with that, and the fact that they weren't quite as much under the cap. But
see, my thing about making the salary cap bigger is all you're going to do is scale all of these contracts up that amount. It's like, oh, we can pay our quarterback that amount now. Let's do it. And still,
I think it's like going to almost exclusively only scale the quarterback deals, though, because I think everyone else is still going to be around significantly under. Yeah. But yeah. And so again, I mean, I will again sit here and say the Buffalo Bills window is closed.
Yep.
Like,
now I really believe it.
The defense was already not good last year. And they lost. They probably lost the opportunity to win a Super Bowl because the defense was bad, and they're losing the only good players on the defense.
Yep. And
so they're gonna have to hope they can draft some sleepers and hopefully replace at least sort of what they lost. But I mean, they're losing Pro Bowl defensive backs, and they're going to have to somehow luck into talent in the draft to replace them on a cheap deal.
Indeed. Do you have another week?
Yeah.
Opens.
I will say, the Antonio Brown of the week goes to Antonio Brown. We don't have to go into details. We don't have to go into details, but if anybody sees his tweets, you'll understand that he's just been going off
I listen. I have a
on
group
off the
text.
rails.
I have a group text with some friends from back home who I went to high school with, my best friends from home, and like we have been sharing them nonstop because, of course, we're Steeler fans. So it's
Yeah.
like, a lot of the stuff he's been saying has been relevant to that whole discussion. In any way, which speaking of which, this is news as of today. I don't even know if you call this. Well, I can come up with something for it. Could be your first major acquisition of the week. Of really next week, I should say, when the league year turns over. Russell Wilson is set to meet the Steelers. Let me just first say the news was since our last
Yep.
show, he's been informed that he's going to be released by the Broncos. So if we had this show a little bit later in the week last week, I probably would have said, well, that didn't work. Of the week goes to Russell Wilson. Now, though, it's shifted to, I guess there's genuine mutual interest from the Steelers and Team Three's camp. I was initially like, oh, come on, I don't want him to be part of our room. But now, a lot of the stuff I've been seeing is he still had a pretty good year numbers wise last year, and he's cheap. And I was like, I'm not totally against it. I've become more intrigued about it since with some of the stuff I've read about it today. Well, it would make sense, especially when you got Pickett struggling and there's a lot of uncertainty with offense in general. Um, and the Steelers are not an organization that's going to let him come in and just dictate whatever he wants. So that's my initial reaction to it.
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. I will say, um, you've got Arthur Smith there, who clearly was trying to do something with Desmond Ridder
Yep.
in Atlanta. He did something in Tennessee with Tannehill. And so I think definitely if there's anybody that can get the best out of either out of probably both Kenny and Russ, he can probably do something with them. But yeah, I mean, as dumb and corny as the dude can be, he's probably the best option that you guys have as far as experience, cheap contract situation goes. And yeah, I mean, I obviously, from a divisional opponent perspective, I want to see this crash and burn into a fiery disaster. But I mean, he had like a 98 quarterback rating or something this year, so he played fairly well.
I like if I were a fan of you, if I were a fan of an AFC North, I'd be like, you're telling me that we could get the Broncos crash and burn situation in our division for the Steelers? Absolutely, let's do it. That's my biggest fear.
Yeah, I
Obviously.
mean, hey, Tomlin, get Russ an office in the facility. Have him basically, be a terrible teammate and
Jason, what if Seattle Russ returns though? Because it's the Steelers and everything we
yeah,
touch
I,
usually
I
turns
don't
to
I, I
gold.
don't I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that.
Anyway, it hasn't even happened yet. It might be news by our next show. I mean, probably will be of some kind. So uh shifting okay, staying in let me just check this. Staying in football for this other of the week.
Hmm.
Retirement of the week goes to Jason Kelsey. It is
Yeah,
official. He had his press conference, very tearful goodbye to the league, his career. It was great seeing like the whole Kelsey group there, and got to ultimately have his moment, of which I know you were upset that Schefter pulled the trigger post Super Bowl or post them exiting the playoffs.
yeah.
Uh,
After they lost to the Buccaneers.
Nonetheless, though, he clearly took some time to really think about it, and this was one of those situations where I was like, man, Jason Kelsey's been with them for a long time, like longer than I realized. You know, obviously Super Bowl champion. People are already talking about he's probably a first ballot Hall of Famer. Him and his, like I
Mhm.
said, him and his bro are definitely going to be there together someday. Uh, Separate times, of course, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't know. I almost wonder if this was sort of the plan the whole time, because he announced it the day before there was a bobblehead night at the Cavaliers game with a bobblehead of him and Travis.
Oh yeah, yeah. That
And so him and Travis were courtside for an absolutely electric game against the Celtics, in which the Cavs came back like 22 points and won. But um,
Shout out to whoever came and brought them beers that they immediately chugged. That was
yeah,
great. I was like, I mean, the Kelsey brothers are here. What else are we gonna do? I mean, of
yeah.
course.
So yeah, I part of me wonders if maybe his plan the whole time was to announce it like right before this game or like right around the time they were doing that bobblehead night thing.
I
Um,
saw a funny headline that was like, podcast host retires from day job or
yeah,
something like that. I was like, that's pretty great. I mean, not only that, but like New Heights is like its own thing now, big time. And yeah, I mean, he's had a great career. You don't have to do anything else. There's nothing
yeah,
else you have
yeah.
to
I
do.
mean, it especially because um he talked a lot about his wife during the speech, and so somebody interviewed his wife after, and she was saying that he's written a retirement speech basically all of the last 4 years.
Wow.
Because he at one point in time was planning to retire, pretty much every year for the last several years. Because he talked about it in the documentary that they did too,
Yep.
which was a very common theme with football players, especially offensive and defensive linemen, which is, his body is just breaking down and his, joints hurt. And especially with them having three little girls, it's just, if he wants to be able to walk,
Yeah, you
I
play like,
mean, let alone play with his kids,
I mean, like
he's
12, what,
gotta
12 to
hang it
13
up.
years as an NFL center.
Yeah.
Like, just, I mean, yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, I just assume all guys who played any length of time in the NFL's retirement years just hurt in some capacity. I'd imagine all of them have their own medical stuff. Some worse than others, though. And I always just have this idea. I'm like, man, linemen who do it that long have got to just be hurting the rest of their lives. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
anyway, shout out Jason Kelsey. He's a good dude, and I think he's gonna have an awesome retirement. He seems like a great. He's definitely my favorite of the two Kelsey brothers.
Yeah, yeah. Now it's going to be really interesting to see what he does. I mean, you look at dudes like Joe Thomas and Big Wit. They retired, and I think they both lost like 150 pounds
Oh yeah,
because when you're an offensive lineman, like you have to keep yourself,
that size.
350, 360 pounds, and then when you're not, eating 10,000 calories a day, and you just sort of, you thin back out, and
Alan
um,
Faneca
it would be very funny for him to just show up, and just
would be. Alan Faneca was like one of the most extreme examples of that in Pittsburgh. Obviously, Hall of Famer lineman, but I mean, he was so big when he played, and he lost like 100 pounds. Like it was crazy. I just how much better he looked. Better. I mean, not better. He slimmed down. He's like, it was not only that, but in that situation, I remember him saying it was going to be easier on his joints if he did that. Obviously, you're not
well,
carrying
oh
around as much
yeah,
weight.
yeah,
It's like, yeah, I get
yeah.
it. So
Well,
anyway,
more so, it's interesting to hear those guys talk about like actually how hard it is to get that weight and
to
to keep
stay
it.
that big,
Like,
yeah,
because if you have to be that big to play your position, it's not easy to stay that big,
no,
especially
it's
when you're
not.
working out like they are.
When it's not, yeah, when it's like not a natural thing. Um, how about you? Another of the week? I got one. I
Um,
got one more, and it's a
yeah,
humorous
you can
one.
go. Yep.
Okay, my pariah of the week goes to
Oh boy.
Jake Paul and Mike Tyson, who
Oh
apparently are
god.
going to actually box each other. Which there's no universe in which, when I first heard that was official, that wasn't going to be funny. And I like all of the build up and surrounding to it. I'm like, this just makes itself like this writes itself. This is going to be incredible. Like the parodies, the things said. I mean, this is going to be so funny. The build up to this whole thing. But yes, they're actually going to box. Thoughts, Casen? Like
Um,
60-year-old Mike Tyson against
yeah, I
like
my thoughts
your
are
age Jake Paul or whatever. I think he's a little older.
uh is this a win for, I mean, I don't understand how this could be like a win for Jake Paul in any situation. Like he either loses to a 60-year-old Mike Tyson or he beats an elderly Mike Tyson.
Well,
Like it's just like I don't understand why he would
he
do this
he
for
wins
anything
by getting
other
the
than
money,
clicks.
Casen.
Yeah,
He
well,
he wins
ob-
by getting the money.
obviously.
That's the answer to your question. That's the actual answer to your question. The other answer to your question is, yeah, I mean, but I can also see it the other way. It's like, oh, Jake Paul loses. It's like, yeah, but he lost to Mike Tyson. And if you win, it's like, wow, he just beat Mike Tyson. Like that's how they'll spin it. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, I suppose. Yeah,
See,
yeah.
it's humorous, is it not?
Mm.
Anyway, I will say that I don't know how even up it'll be, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know anything about how boxing is now. But it seems like anytime that these like fights have been this is a little bit different of a situation, but Jake Paul really has kind of left not the internet behind, but he is more about the combat sports now, like on a legit, like he's essentially gone legitimate with that. But this just kind of seemed like, okay, well, this is going to be exactly what it already is, something we can all point to and laugh at and say, well, I can't say I'm not interested.
Yeah.
If
Yeah, I think it'll be entertaining, that's for sure.
what a time to be alive. That's all I have to say. All right. And that was actually my last of the week.
Um, yeah, okay, yep, I'll have one more here just to throw this out there. Um, I have, let me get this pulled up. I'll just go ahead and say, we'll go ahead and say, trade of the week, or maybe you could say Falcon of the Week or whatever. But um, former Bowling Green hockey player who was there when we were there, Sean Walker, was just traded to the Colorado Avalanche. So
Oh, cool.
um,
Okay.
good for him for getting
Walks.
onto a really good squad.
Always liked walks. Gonna say that. I actually do kind of have one more of the week, and it's not have
Yeah.
anything to do with sports, and it'll be a good way to kind of cap the show. My eyebrow raising news of the week kind of comes out, I should say, in the world of entertainment is some things have surfaced here in the last like few days that Bob Iger and others have said how they have quietly canceled some Marvel projects. I don't know if you've seen anything about this. It's really been emerging in the last like
I
24, 48
I
hours.
have not.
It has not been public. Nothing's been made public, but this is the first time he's publicly addressed in some way like we've quietly canceled some projects, like we've shelved some things. And people are now like TikTok and others, and people were wondering, taking to the internet of, well, what could he be talking about? What like, and people are speculating on what it is, on what items are, because we've obviously seen. I don't know if we even talked about it on this show. They announced who the Fantastic Four is going to be. They confirmed that they did that on Valentine's Day.
Mhm.
Uh, and we know those big projects with those big names are coming. But even you and I were sitting here like, Ironheart, is that still going to happen? Is the Agatha show going to happen? Um, Armor Wars, which I don't even know really exactly all what was. Blade has had issues, like nothing but
Mhm.
issues, like no MCU project has. And I'm not thinking it's going to be something like the Thunderbolts that started filming like last week or whatever. I think, yeah, it's interesting to speculate what it could be, because I'm wondering when they're going to make that public of what is not on the way as they reprioritize.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe, yeah, I think if we had to guess, it would be some of the stuff that isn't inherently important to getting the actual the direction of the next Avengers movie done. I think that they understand that they need to focus on the exposition to set up the next Avengers movie, and maybe reprioritize, or realign the priorities away from just the filler content that
Yeah.
maybe isn't quite as important. Um, just because obviously I think Agatha's done because it's supposed to come out at some point this year. So I think that's already done
Well,
and is
right.
in
And
post.
people, I heard someone say, do we have a situation here with some of these things where it's like the Batgirl movie for DC, where
I mean,
they just pull the plug
for
and
them to just shelve like a finished project, I don't think Marvel would ever do that. I think that they might,
never say never,
before they just shelve an entire project, I think they might reincorporate it and reshoot it or whatever they need to do
to
to
make
turn
the
it into a.
project still releasable. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, because I think they also are acutely aware of how much flack that studio got for doing that.
That would be a horrible look
and
if they
and
were to do
they
that. Disney, the
and I
mouse would
think,
not do that.
if anything else, Feige loves having the moral high ground on being the better studio. And so obviously if you do something like that, then you can't claim, you're better than Warner Brothers. So,
Right.
um, I think that, yeah. And I also think that to a certain extent, I mean, obviously actors are going to take a paycheck or whatever, but I do think that there might have been, some actors and some agents that are really thinking twice about taking Warner Brothers projects now,
Oh,
because
Warner
if
Brothers for sure. Yeah.
because you set the precedent that whatever they spend 3 months in some foreign country filming could just never be released, then
Oh,
maybe
yeah.
they take a different project
I
if they
mean, like
can't.
the human
Yeah,
element of this that we talked about all last summer with the strikes. I mean, you can't get that time back. I mean,
yeah,
in your life and career.
yeah.
Um, it's all the stuff we had. We talked about the controversy of when James Gunn came in, and he's going to replace certain members of the Superman and all that stuff. But
Hmm.
it's like these actors didn't take other projects that they could have all this time because they were kept being told by Warner Brothers that they're going to still be the character, and now they're not. It's like it's people's lives, all right. You know what I mean? But anyway, not to make it too big of a story than it is, I kind of interpreted this more, and I'll just kind of say this as stuff that internally they might have been working on that never totally got announced. I would be surprised. It'll be very much a surprise if something that has gotten announced gets the axe. I mean, they've done that before, but at very least, there's stuff that they have announced which isn't in the can yet. You know what I mean? Like we mentioned.
Yeah.
Um, I took that as maybe they were originally thinking Young Avengers, but now it's like maybe we pull the plug on that and retool that. Like I took that as a general statement of internally we had things we were gonna do that we definitely are not now. um because of multiple reasons. And I kind of take this while you were talking there to your point, Casen. I want to say this. After Endgame happened, right?
Hmm.
One of my favorite YouTubers, and just shout out this guy, Jeremy Johns, on YouTube. He's one of my favorite. You know who
Oh
I
yeah.
think you watch him from time to time because of me. I'm pretty sure.
Hmm.
He mentioned, I remember in his review of Endgame and his like spoiler talk, something along the lines of, I mean, here over the next few years, I mean, they're just going to throw things at the wall and see what sticks. You can try different projects, you can try different characters, obscure things, and I think it's fair to say that Disney has realized that we are well past them being able to do that. We are well past the experimental thing. We need to sure up and fire exactly what the next phases are going to be, especially considering the Jonathan Majors thing. So we are we are 5 years removed from that, folks. Like it is time to focus up of where we're taking this whole story. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I just had the thought. I mean, I part of me wonders if we're gonna get, some some huge maybe some speech from Feige at Comic-Con about, like, here's the updated timeline, here's the updated listing, and you know to show the renamed Avengers movie or whatever.
yeah,
I think that because it's been a while after all the stuff had to get shut down, or after, or all the projects got delayed and stuff from
strikes.
COVID and stuff, and the strikes.
Yep,
And so I feel like this year's Comic-Con might be a good opportunity to sort of circle back and say, look, we've canceled some stuff, shelved some stuff, moved some stuff around.
we've
And
heard
so
your criticism
yeah, yeah. I think if
and the
there's any,
shareholders.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think if there's anybody that would be open about some of the changes to the plan, it would be Kevin Feige, because
Oh
they've done it before and he knows how to
man, he's still the architect, man.
retool the trajectory. So
He's still a hit maker. I don't care what anyone
yeah.
says. He's still him and Favreau, people involved, people like that. They're just hit makers. It's what they do. And
Mhm.
I've got confidence. And if it's not Comic Con, I only say it's because Comic Con, as it's traditionally is, does it probably isn't going to quite exist like I always have. If not Comic Con, maybe D23
Yeah,
or
yeah,
some other
yeah.
event where that strategically makes sense. Because I'm pretty sure we'll get Deadpool before Comic Con because Comic Con's usually in July. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
something
yeah.
like that.
So it would be
Deadpool and
right
Wolverine is
before.
gonna be
Yeah,
fire. Yeah, counting the days down, man. He's gonna be awesome.
so good, so good.
All right.
Mm.
Well, that's the show. I will say thank you so much everybody for watching, listening far and wide, whatever you wherever you tune in from. I will say once again, this is March. This is indeed March.
Mhm.
And so let us know your thoughts leading into it. Casen and I, honestly, is it fair to say that you and I are kind of taking the show week by week now?
Yeah, yeah.
Just
I
for a
mean,
little
for the
bit here?
foreseeable future. I mean, it's sort of yeah, just a busy time for I think both of us. And we're we'll try and be on top of March Madness, but once we get beyond that and into I guess what you could say is sort of the off season of a lot of sports. Yeah.
Baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Fairns, we'll be in talking about that. But we're also going to get things like shows and stuff to talk about. And so, shout out one of the. I'll just say this: one of the shows I'm really anticipating, which I probably will try to talk about here on the show, even if you don't watch it. Fallout, man. Fallout is coming out on Amazon, and I'm very excited for it because that's my favorite video game series of all time. Know a lot about the lore, and to be honest, the trailers make it look really good. It's going to be on Amazon Prime, so at least true to the game in the sense of being really good. Hopefully, it is
Mm-hmm.
actually good because video game content translating well to big screen stuff used to always be awful, and now it's kind of shifting because like Sonic's done well, and there's been other projects that have done good adaptations of that media. But
The Last of
Fallout,
Us, yeah.
yeah, the Last of Us, good another good example. I think we're entering a potential golden age with stuff like that, and uh, the Bethesda Game Studios has essentially said, who storyboarded the show with Amazon, that everything in the show is canon to the universe. I'm like, oh, okay, so awesome. So that's nice to know. So anyway, stuff like that is coming on the pipe too. So we'll be have more pop culture stuff to talk about. So
Yeah, absolutely.
any final thoughts, my
Mm.
friend?
Uh, this is March.
This is March. This is Kellan,
This is Kasen.
and we'll see you as always at the next stop.